Welcome to this episode of The Setup. Today I want to talk about which sprayers I use on the farm. And I've got 3 of them here behind me. You don't need 3 sprayers, but before we're done with this episode, I'm going to convince you that you might need more than 1. Dream Farm is brought to you by Whitetail Institute. Research equals results. Hunt Stand Pro Whitetail app. Hoyt Archery, Wildlife Farming, and PH Outdoors. We're going to walk through these one by one, and what you're going to see is these are all by Wildlife Farming, and this is a company that I work with. They're distributors of all kinds of equipment. So if you go to, I think it's wildlifefarming.com, you can take a look at everything they've got to offer. They've got dealers set up around the country. They're one of the leading distributors for the PH Outdoors drills that we use too. But these sprayers are labeled under their brand. There's a 200 gallon, and that's a big 3-point hitch model that's runs off the PTO. Then I've got I think it's the biggest one that they offered that runs off electric, that you don't have to hook up to a PTO. And I like that for this smaller tractor. So this is a 65 gallon model. As we keep going, you're going to see the smaller one. And this is the one I run off my ATV, and that's 25 gallons. So I'm going to go into some detail on how each one of these works. The big one is only really good for situations where you've got a lot of ground to cover. But also because it's got booms instead of boomless, it does a lot better under windy conditions because you're shooting the spray down. You're not throwing it out where the wind can affect it. And that's a big deal. It may not sound like much, but man, if there's a 5 to 10 mile an hour wind blowing, that can really move that spray when you're throwing it out. And it's not very accurate to start with when you're using a boomless sprayer, and then you throw the wind into the mix, and it gets, you lose control of where it's going. So that's why I like the one with the booms, and they make booms for the smaller sprayers too. It's just so convenient with the boomless to slip in and out of places, and you don't have to get off and flip the booms down. And a lot of little small places, little small food plots that I go into, the boomless is perfect. So that's the trade-off between the boomed and the boomless. 200 gallons is a lot. I can cover close to 20 acres with that, somewhere between 17 and 20 acres. So if I'm doing the whole farm, I'm hitting all my food plots, let's say in the spring, to get the initial burn down on everything, or maybe I've got I don't know, 10, 12 acres of beans and I need to spray them all. That's pretty handy for that because you can cover a lot of ground fast. The downside of the big one is the fact that you need to put it on a pretty big tractor. So if you don't have a bigger tractor, because it has to have the lift capability and it has to be heavy enough, that it's not trying to lift the front end of your tractor up once you get water in there or your chemical. So when you run it over the top of fields, especially if there's something already growing there, you're going to smash a lot of stuff down. And that's the downside in my mind of the bigger one. Otherwise, I just run that all the time because it's so much more accurate. And like I said, it does a lot better job in the wind, but it really is a high impact on whatever you're spraying into. I mean, you're going to smash over a lot of beans, or if you're spraying, into young trees or whatever it might be, you're going to crush a lot of stuff. Less so with this 65 gallon model that's on this little small tractor. And you could go, you can go smaller than 65 gallons, and if your tractor is smaller than this one, I mean, this is a pretty small tractor. It's not much bigger than an ATV. And it does a really nice job. I can cover with 65 gallons, I can cover about 5 acres, more or less. And that usually covers most of the projects that I'm working on this farm. So now if we look at the four-wheeler, I mean, obviously this is the lowest impact. I mean, I can run over beans and come back the next day and they've popped back up again already. It doesn't have nearly the killing effect on stuff that you're driving over. So I like that a lot for situations where my crop is already up and I don't have to cover a lot of ground. 25 gallons, gosh, that's going to get me 2 to 2.5 acres. You know, I always figure 2 acres conservatively, but I put enough chemical in for 2.5 because, you know, depending upon, again, the wind conditions and everything else, if I get good coverage with my spray, I can usually get 2.5 acres out of that. I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I think we've covered these pretty well. Again, I can go back over just really quick the conclusions. It's really nice to have all three, but you don't need 3 sprayers. If you're going to cut one out, you cut out the big boomed model, unless you've got a lot of acres. And then between the little tractor mounted 65 gallon and this ATV mounted 25, I'm probably going to stick with the little tractor mounted model because it's just so handy to be able to cover, you know, more ground like that. Plus it's super easy to take it on and off with that 3-point hitch. I mean, it's way easier than lugging this thing around and, you know, trying to figure out how to strap it on and keep it from moving around on top of the deck on my 4-wheeler. That thing is like boom, you know, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and I'm in operation. So well, that's it for this episode. I appreciate you joining me, and I'll see you back here again soon for the next episode of The Setup. And remember to always dream big.